After Charlie Kirk's death, some conservatives are aiming to crack down on what they call radical leftism and anyone celebrating what happened to the Turning Point USA founder.
Airlines, schools, and universities, and even some in the healthcare industry have already fired, suspended, or denounced employees' social media posts related to the death of Kirk.
One anonymous website, for instance, says that they're building a database that has more than 50,000 submissions of these kinds of social media posts with the goal of firing people. In the airline sector, political commentator Milo Yiannopoulos posted screenshots of an alleged American Airlines pilot who was seemingly mocking Kirk's death. The airline responded to the tweet, writing, "American Airlines condemns violence of any kind. Furthermore, hate-related or hostile behavior runs contrary to our purpose, which is to care for people on life's journey. Any such behavior is unacceptable. We've already initiated action to address this with our team." Then there are plenty of other examples of this across sectors. For instance, local Oregon news outlet KGW8 reported that a middle school science teacher was placed on leave for posting the Charlie Kirk getting shot and dying, quote, brightened up his day. The teacher then resigned.
Now, some Democrats, however, are sounding the alarm. Senator Chris Murphy pointed to this clip of White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller on Fox News.
But the last message that Charlie Kirk gave to me before he joined his Creator in heaven was he said that we have to dismantle and take on the radical left organizations in this country that are fomenting violence. That was the last message that he sent me before that assassin stole him from all of us. And we are going to do that.
Now, Senator Chris Murphy responded to that on X, saying, quote, "Pay attention, something dark might be coming. The murder of Charlie Kirk could have united Americans to confront political violence. Instead, Trump and his anti-democratic radicals look to be readying a campaign to destroy dissent." He continued, "The Trump-Loomer-Miller narrative that Dems are cheering Kirk's murder or that left groups are fomenting violence is also made up. There are always going to be online trolls, but Dem leaders are united as opposed to Trump, who continues to cheer the January 6th violence." Democratic Senator Chris Coons also said this on Sunday on Face the Nation.
The internet is an accelerant. It is driving extremism in our country. It's driving us apart, left and right. And leaders like Senator Langford, Governor Cox, have an obligation and an opportunity to join with leaders from my party in urging folks to set aside any thought of political violence and to respect each other.
Yeah, lots we could say here. I guess let's begin with the canceling campaign.
I was wondering all weekend to talk to you about how you felt about this.
I don't feel very positively about it. I have long opposed cancel culture. I've written over and over again about what was wrong with progressive attempts to cancel people for expressing controversial or provocative views throughout the 2010s when it was the height of left-wing cancel culture. And I've also criticized conservatives who have sought to do the same, try to cancel, for instance, pro-Palestinian voices. I've always said that was a wrong thing. Look, this is a lot of people all over the country. I bet that some of these firings or cancellations or whatever you're calling it are probably appropriate in some cases. Many of them are not, certainly. And I would just in general push back and disassociate from an effort to create, lists of people who are doing wrong things. I mean, I think it's horrific if you're actually celebrating the death of someone, and I think that's worse than a lot of the things that progressives were trying to cancel people for in the 2010s that had to do with, mean or, racist or homophobic or sexist tweets they'd sent in their adolescence, where I'm like, who even cares? And if you're a fully grown adult saying it's nice that someone died, that's pretty awful. But again, it depends what you're doing. If you're in a communications role for a major firm or a media person or someone whose whose words matter is the wrong way, who is more accountable, I think, for what they said, or whose position or pay hinges on what you say being accurate and acceptable, then it's more permissible. If you're a janitor or a sales clerk or something like that, and you said in a group chat that, you hated Charlie Kirk or whatever and you lost your job, I think that's pretty needless, and I would not try to punish people that way. So that's my overall thoughts.
And I think overall, for the free speech party to be saying this is absurd, because it's just a case of selective outrage, right?
Well, and it's contrary to Charlie Kirk's entire ethos is the other thing. This was the man who would go to any corner of the country, to the most unfriendly, hostile, college campuses. He went to Oxford and debated someone who's now apparently celebrated his death. He was supposed to debate Hassan Piker, who's called for his enemies to die. So Charlie would be the last person to say debates aren't worth having, cancel people for speech. So in some ways it dishonors his memory to launch this massive cancel culture campaign on his behalf.
And also if employers like American Airlines or whomever else has fired people based off this because of their moral compass of the company, right? It's like the fabric that they're going off of. You can have this vague overview of what's acceptable and what's not. Then we have to comb through every incident, right? So if people are saying those things that are racist online, like we have protections against in employment to make equal opportunity there. So like then you should just be firing everybody for whatever they're tweeting or putting on Instagram and everything, because mocking a death is totally inappropriate, but it's still not against the law in the same way that being racist is not against the law, right? And I think that also I was watching and looking at some of the people they were calling out on that list of 50,000. Like one of them works in the military and specifically said something along the lines like, I can abhor the violence that happened to Charlie Kirk, but I don't have to celebrate the way that he lived his life. And so people are upset about her saying that, but that's a nuanced thought that people are allowed to have, that people, the same people that are criticizing her, had about the death of George Floyd. They might abhor what the police officer did, Derek Chauvin, to him, but they do not want to celebrate the way that he was living his life. And that's up to you, right? And I didn't agree with that, but it's like, okay, I don't think you should lose your job because you said that. And I think when we get to the point where the same people that are always outspoken about free speech are doing this, it really bothers me because I'm looking at what's the intention and the goal. Is it only what benefits you, or are you actually trying to implement policy that's equal to all?
Well, you're too reasonable on all this, Lindsey, because there
I
are a
think
lot
it's just a terrible, sad issue.
lefter-leaning people than you who would be happy to have me lose my job for any number of things I've said over the years.
But the critical thing that also was in this conversation was what Senator Coons was saying is that the leadership on the Democratic side, I think, from my purview, is leaning into a conversation that is saying that this violent act was totally wrong and nothing of the sort of celebration. And so when we look at how leadership has responded, that's what we can go off of. If we look at social media, sometimes social media can be this beautiful place where we celebrate brilliant things like having a baby and all the things. And then sometimes it can be a real dumpster fire.
Coming around to the idea, just quickly, because we're going to have to go, but social media is our internal monologue. It's your intrusive thoughts being shared, and we all have dark, bad thoughts. But it's healthy to just I'd really like to kill that person. That's just like your.
No, Robby, I don't have that thought.
I think we all do. Okay, you'd really like to kick a potted plant in blind fury.
Yeah,
whatever.
I'd like to kick the plant down the road.
You never think about just squeezing the life out of it. But you keep that inside. You don't say it. But social media allows people to actually express their dark thoughts.
And hide behind no pictures
Well,
of themselves.
hide behind quasi-anonymity until it's not anonymity.
Right.
And so I think social media makes it seem like we're
the worst of the worst.
We're worse than we are, because you're just, like, if every dark, intrusive thought anyone had ever had was projected for all the world to see, we would look like a very, very fallen
If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything. Didn't your mom say that back in the day?
That is great advice, Lindsey, and I agree with it.
Fox and Friends' Brian Kilmeade in hot water after some controversial comments. His on-air apology next. Don't go anywhere.